What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Tap. Happy Thursday.
What is going on? How's everyone's Thursday going?
John, you just splashed that beer everywhere when you opened it. All over our expensive equipment. It's okay, though.
Just a drop or two.
It's all right. But
gotta break it in somehow.
yeah, knobs are gonna be a little sticky and hard to move, and can't do that.
Yeah, we'll get them set to where they need to be, and then we won't have that issue.
Yeah, there we go. So, welcome in, everybody. Once again, welcome to the Fantasy Tap. My name's Michael. This is John, and it is a beautiful Thursday. We have a fun-filled episode for you guys. Super stoked about what we have in line. To get into it real quick, to get into our beer of the day before we go over what we're going to be talking about today, we're drinking the Stump Knocker. John's last name is Stump, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is actually a family beer. Just kidding, but no, it's so far pretty good. It's an American pale ale made by Swamphead Brewery,
out of Gainesville.
Florida.
Yep, but I cut you off.
I lived there for a couple years.
Yeah,
kind of fun.
Then I talked him into moving to Orlando with me, and that's why we're best friends pretty much now.
Yeah, you force someone to live with you because they told you it was going to be a great time, and
it was.
Yeah, it was fun, and we're here today.
We're alive, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But let's run over real quick what we're going to be talking about today. We've got a cool segment we're going to be doing today, and that is called
Cheapskates.
Ooh, you ever buy any Cheapskates, John?
I've bought a cheap pair of skates off eBay before.
Yeah?
Yeah, for my mom's birthday.
Inline or quad?
Quad. No, yeah, quad wheel. She likes the old school roller skates.
Yep.
I had to think about that. I really don't roller skate.
When my dad played hockey, actually, he only wore quad. Everybody else wore inline, but
I could see your dad doing that.
Yeah, rocking the quads. After that, we're going to be talking about wide receiver rookies. Not all of them, because there's, a good amount. But we both picked three that we think have great opportunity, especially for where they're being drafted. And we'll be getting into that. And then, of course, we'll be hitting some news. And there's been a lot of news.
Yeah, some big breaking stuff happened while we were gone. We need to get over it, go over it, check in on what's going on, and see who it affected.
So, but let's jump into it. If I had a cool retro skating rink drop, I'd hit that button right now. You got any cool mouth 80s music you could beatbox?
No, I'm sorry. I don't think I do.
Well, we apologize for that. But let's get into it. Cheapskates. John, I'll give you the first scenario here. All right. Carson Wentz or Jared Goff. Now, Carson Wentz is going as the quarterback 12, ADP 106, and Jared Goff is going as the QB 20, ADP 155. Are you gonna be cheap? You gonna buy them Cheapskates?
So let's look at it this way. So last year, Carson Wentz finished as the quarterback 10. And he was coming off injured receivers throughout the season, all over the board, all the way into this playoffs where they were picking people up off waivers and really digging deep. So you have the emergence of Miles Sanders, who's shown himself to be a pretty prominent pass-catching back. Last year, he had over 60 passing attempts come his way. And even though while he does have some weak receivers, he has tight ends, two really good tight ends, and Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert sitting there that are pretty elite as far as the tight ends go. So with the addition of Jalen Reagor, you're probably going to see something similar to where he finished last year, if not just a little bit higher. So you're looking maybe the 8 to 12 market. So you're looking at a low-end quarterback one when you look at Carson Wentz. And then when you come to Jared Goff, he finished as the quarterback 16 last year. Really a down year for him. 22 touchdowns when he's already thrown 28 and 32 in his two previous years, and then he came off a 16 interception year. Last year he had Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Brandon Cooks. They lost Brandon Cooks to Houston this season. They made up for it a little bit, hopefully, with the addition of Van Jefferson as a rookie coming in to them. But I also think that most of his issue last year was just an off season for someone. And I think that if he can just, not throw so many interceptions, maybe turn some of those 16 interceptions, which is off the charts for him, into maybe, that 12 mark where he's a little more comfortable, or 7 even, where he started his first 2 seasons with interceptions. You'll see more touchdowns, more yards, and more completions on his end. And that might even boost him up towards that top 10 quarterback mark. And when you're picking him up at ADP 155 compared to 106, I'm going to use that later. I'm going to pick him up later and use that earlier round pick to grab a better receiver to make up for, the event where Jared Goff has a season like he does last year, which is probably somewhere close to his floor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think I would also go Jared Goff there. Like you said, they lost Brandon Cooks, but they added Van Jefferson, but they're also going to have Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, both healthy next year as well. So that gives them some other targets, more on the field. And offensive line is kind of weak, but he's been dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, last year their
whole career, right?
Yeah, last year his best season was 2 years ago where he had 33 sacks. Last year he only had 22, but so you really see the issue that he had last year was that a lot of their touchdowns came in the run game. He just happened to get close to it, and they ran the ball in. He didn't really get that huge touchdown boost where he's, like I said, last year he had 22, where he threw 28 the season before that, or 32 the season before that, and 28 the season before that. So he can throw 25, 30 touchdowns a season. He's already shown it twice in his short career. So if he can just get more opportunities, get a couple more touchdowns in there, he'll boost himself really high. Because the point spread at that depth at the quarterback rankings, it's not too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and plus Carson Wentz's injury history that for me, and his lack of receivers. I mean, they just had Marquise Goodwin opt out, so
yeah, and that was someone who was supposed to come in there and give them a little bit of depth and a little bit of dynamic receiver typing in their receiver core. So it sucks, but stay away from Carson.
So you're buying them cheapskates, baby?
Yeah, I'm taking Jared Goff late.
Mm-hmm.
So over to you. Let's see. Are you taking these cheapskates at Lamar Jackson, quarterback 2, getting drafted at ADP 20? So that's, end of the second. Or you can pick up Josh Allen, who's the quarterback 11 at ADP 99.
So I've been fighting over myself all day on this one. And I'm taking Josh Allen. And the reason being is because at that 20 spot, I can grab, another valuable asset to my roster. I don't have to go after I don't like taking quarterbacks that early. And last year Josh Allen finished with as QB7. He actually had 13 games over 15 points, which is, respectable. And that's pretty consistent, and that's really all you want out of a quarterback. Stay healthy and be consistent. You don't want to have to, you don't want him to be dropping down below that 15-point mark a ton. So 3 games under 15 is not bad. And he also gives the rushing upside. He actually had more rushing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson last year.
Yeah, led the league.
Yeah.
Led the league in rushing touchdowns for a quarterback and is actually number 2 in rushing attempts.
Now, he did have less red zone attempts than Lamar did, so he was, a bit more efficient. Josh Allen had, 22 inside the 20, and Lamar Jackson had 28. And inside the 5, Josh Allen scored all 5 of his attempts. Which is pretty crazy. So, but anyways, he gives you that rushing upside you need. Plus, they added Stephon Diggs in the offseason. So, I'm going to take Josh Allen late and add, an integral part to another integral piece to my wide receiver running back core at that second round pick. If he drops to, the mid third or so, I'd take Jackson there. But if I'm drafting ADP wise, I'm taking Josh Allen.
Yeah, I can't pick up a quarterback in the second round. There's just so many things that you can pick up that, running backs, receivers that can solidify your team really early on and allow you to take risks later on, maybe with a quarterback who you're picking up, like Jared Goff, who's picking up late, who might have upside as a quarterback, quarterback one, weekend quarterback two, or weekend quarterback one, high end quarterback two. So I'd go with Josh Allen happily, knowing that he's someone who's can run the ball, not as well as Lamar. No one can run the ball as well as Lamar. We all know that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that.
No.
Okay.
No. And so he does get the rushing attempts. He has shown that he's efficient with the rushing. He ended third last year in rushing yards, second in attempts. So he wasn't as great as Kyler Murray, as efficient as Kyler Murray, but he is a mobile quarterback, especially someone who's young. He does have the throw power. He does have he doesn't have the deep arm accuracy that we saw last year. He was 25% on his deep balls, but I think the addition of a better receiver out there, a more confident receiver, is going to be able to help him out, make his balls look a little bit better when you have someone who can get to them and can turn your 10-yard pass where your receiver's getting tackled to a 20-yard pass because your guy's able to get upfield and have a little more separation. So I'm taking the upside on Josh Allen here.
I'm glad we agree, John.
Yeah.
I'm glad we agree. All right, let's move to your next. And this is a pretty interesting one. I like this one a lot. Mark Ingram at running back 23. ADP 42, or Raheem Mostert at the running back 27, ADP 57.
So this one is actually really, really hard for me. I was looking into it, and Mark Ingram finishes the RB8 last year in a half-point PPR, and the Ravens did add J.K. Dobbins, so you would think that he's going to have some of those carries eaten into by this new running back who came in, who they drafted a little bit early. And then if you also look into his stats a little bit more, he had a 3-touchdown game and 2 2-touchdown games on a 10-touchdown total.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a lot of his touchdown performance came on situational, just happened to work that way. He doesn't have a breakaway game. He doesn't have something where, other than consistent rushing attempts, you're not going to get value from him. And so even though he is valued at the ADP of 42, it's the RB 23, you're probably going to get somewhere around that from him. But when you look over at Raheem Mostert, last year he finished at the 24. Right now he's being valued at the 27. Last year he was competing with Telvin Coleman and Matt Breida in the backfield. You've got Matty shipped over down here to the Dolphins, ready to go for us. Mostert just got his contract restructured with the 49ers, meaning that they want to keep him. They see the value in him. They don't want to just trade him away. So you would expect that they're going to be putting the ball in his hands as much as last year, if not more than last year. And then you also have Jimmy Garoppolo there, who's just, if you think about it, it's only his second season starting for a team this season. Mm-hmm. So I think he's going to have a good uptick in his volume and his efficiency, and you'll be able to see that come from all of his receivers and even his running backs. So I would definitely grab Mostert at this point. You're grabbing him at the, just before the 6th round. You're much better than picking up Mark Ingram in the 3rd. You're missing out on Calvin Ridley. You're missing out on, a good wide receiver and able to take care of that late round running back who you're going to be using as your second or your flex anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, he got his money, so he's happy. San Fran's happy. So I think that that is a wise pick. And I know, like you said, Tevin Coleman's there and J.K. Dobbins is there for Mark Ingram. But, I mean, we saw it last year. And like you said, Mostert finishes at RB24 last year with Tevin Coleman there. And Tevin Coleman was supposed to be that RB1 for that team. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, it's a no-brainer for me. Definitely Raheem Mostert there as well.
All right. So, for your second grouping, you got, are you taking Rob Gronkowski, the Gronkinator himself, tight end number 6, that puts him at ADP 70? Or are you being cheap and grabbing Jared Cook at tight end 11, ADP 110?
So this is another one I fight over. You want everybody, when you think Gronk, you think back to the 2016, 2017, 2015 time when he was tight end 1, or top top tight end out there. He's number one tight end off the board. And you want him to be that. But he played 2018 season hurt, and he wasn't the same. Then obviously he took last year off. So I don't expect him to be even in the top 6. I think where you're drafting him, I don't expect him to be up there. I expect him to be a lower end tight end 1. There's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. You've got, first of all, other tight ends, O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate, which they're not, they're solid. I know they cause you headaches, but, they will steal targets from Gronk. And then you got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans there to steal a ton of targets as well. But what I find interesting is if you go back to and the reason why I compared these two players is if you go back to last year's Jared Cook stats and Gronk's 2018 stats, they're very similar. Gronk had 72 targets, 47 receptions, and Jared Cook had 65 targets and 43 receptions. So, but I think the biggest upside, I think they'll finish around the same targets-wise, but I think Jared Cook gives a little bit more touchdown upside. So I'm going to be going Jared Cook. And I think he also gives those he'll have those more explosive plays. I know he's, older and whatnot, but with Michael Thomas on the outside running down the middle, it frees somebody up, and there's nobody else really there.
Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah, but
Traquan Smith?
Well, Traquan.
Alvin Kamara? Taysom Hill?
I'm talking about wide receiver wise. All right. Or receiver wise. There's nobody else there that's
Trotman?
Yeah, no. So other than Traquan didn't do much last year anyways.
No, I'm just kidding. The only real one that was even halfway serious there was Alvin Kamara, who's going to be getting his own targets that aren't going to be competing for theirs. So
right. So I think that Jared Cook gives you the highest upside there, and I'll be taking Jared Cook.
Yeah. I really would be on the same page with you there. I'm looking at them both, and the ADP. I don't like taking a tight end or a quarterback early. And so I'm much happier grabbing Jared Cook, tight end 11. That's not a hard number to crack. The tight end tiers. Once you get out of the top 6, or even the top 2, are a tier of its own. But once you get out of the top 6, you're shooting fit. You're taking a guess.
Yeah.
And so you might as well grab someone who's proven himself to be someone who can be at the top of their game, having single digit finishes at least twice in his career. If you don't get that from him at that ADP, then you can stream tight ends for the rest of the season, wait for someone to get open, and secure another roster spot. So I'm taking the later guy. I'm being cheap here, and I'm letting Gronk go by, even though I do think he's someone who has some value, but not nearly where he's going at 70.
Yeah, the best return on investment really is going to be Jared Cook.
Oh, return on investment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
want to lose it all?
We're fine. Yeah. So anyways, let's get to your last one, John. And this is a pretty interesting one as well. Juju Smith-Schuster or Deontay Johnson? Sorry.
Yeah. So back to what I was just saying. This one's a little bit different when I'm coming to the mindset of, I'm comparing a starter from one team and a starter from another, and who's going to have more opportunity there.
Let me give him the ADP real quick. Juju, wide receiver 10, ADP 32. And then Deontay, wide receiver 37, ADP 90. So
I was just so excited.
Yeah, I know.
I was just so excited. I think this is a good one. So I'm looking at Juju, who's going at 32. So you're looking at the mid-round of your third. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver 10, he came off one of his worst seasons last year. He's only had a handful of seasons, but you saw him have his breakout in year 2. You were expecting a lot from him. He came off with some shoddy quarterback play, but so did Deontay Johnson, who actually had a better finish than him. And so when you're looking at these two, it's different than the rest of the guys that we've gone over, because I'm looking at two people who were from different teams, both top of their position. Now, who's going to get more opportunity? When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at two people who are going to be working under Ben Roethlisberger, who you've seen be able to feed two relevant fantasy receivers year in and year out every year. And even if Deontay Johnson doesn't end up as the Steelers' number 1, you're getting way more than your return on investment at wide receiver 38 than you are at Juju at wide receiver 10, who, wide receiver 10 for Juju might be his ceiling. He's great. He's awesome. But when you look at the other wide receivers who, are 1 through 5, it's hard for them to fall out of that spot. It's going to be hard for Juju to even keep up with that 10 spot. Deontay has a much easier time of breaking into the 20s than I think Juju has of being a top 12.
Yeah.
So I'm grabbing Deontay at the 90 spot. Give him to me all day. I'll be cheap.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. Deontay is, one of my favorite late round guys because of his upside, because of what he showed last year. And Juju, he left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, I think he left a bad taste in, fantasy players' mouths.
Well, they had so much quarterback drama. You can't blame the guy for that.
I understand.
At the man who gets hit in the head with a helmet.
But like you said, I mean, Deontay Johnson still, produced with the same quarterbacks. So I mean, he wasn't a wide receiver 1, but no. I mean, he still added,
Juju did miss a handful of games. Deontay did play all 16, and even had their other James Washington played 15. So both of them did finish above Juju. But when you have a quarterback who's not confident in his own play style, and then he's getting swapped in and out with a third-string quarterback, it's not hard for defenses to be like, okay, we're going to double this guy. We're going to single coverage him, and we're going to take this guy away from him because this quarterback's not going to know how to open up the field for him. So I don't take anything from last year as a positive or negative on how Juju's going to respond to being a wide receiver 1. I think last year was kind of just like a botched year for the Steelers besides their defense. I mean, their defense is incredible, but Juju and Deontay, I'm taking Deontay late.
Yeah.
Let Juju go.
100%. I agree. I completely agree.
Let him fall to the second, or the, wide receiver 15 near Calvin Ridley, and I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm. So, you want to hit me with the last one?
Yeah, so my last one for you is going to be, are you going to be taking Chris Godwin, wide receiver 6, ADP 21, so just before the turn of the second round, versus Michael Gallup, who's the 33rd receiver off the board, ADP 82?
This is a pretty easy one for me. I'm taking Gallup.
Really?
Yep. The stud, the horse, he's a baller.
You don't see it. You don't see Lamb coming in there eating into the way he finished out last season?
No. And one thing I found really interesting, and last year, Michael Gallup actually had a higher target share percentage than Amari Cooper. And that, I mean, Amari Cooper is the obvious clear-cut, one there. Now, Michael Gallup also had, one less target on two less games. So, I mean, I think that last year really solidified his role in this offense. And his chemistry with Dak was apparent. And, right now, like you said, Chris Godwin's ADP is around that 21 spot. And I'm looking at where who else is being drafted around him. And, personally, I rather grab, my first running back or my second running back right there than go Chris Godwin. Austin Eckler's around that same ADP. And even, I'm a little higher on Kenny Golladay this year than I am Chris Godwin. So I'd rather wait and pick up, solid wide receiver depth with the upside that Michael Gallup has, because I do believe that he has, low-end wide receiver 1 upside this year, and I'd rather pick him up late than grab, spend such a high pick on Chris. And last year, I think another thing that made Chris Godwin so valuable, which I feel like this year Michael Gallup could be last year's Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin was drafted, as the wide receiver 16, and he finished as wide receiver 2. So he really returned on that, made a great return on that investment. So, and I think Gallup will do the same this year. So I'm grabbing Gallup.
Okay, I'm not so hot on Gallup personally. I know he carved a role in for himself, but again, how you have the number one receiver on a team taking up more defense. You have a receiver who was previously relatively unknown. His rookie season, he had a couple good games, but he wasn't a breakout. He didn't, stand out very much. So it wasn't until about halfway through the season where you saw people really start looking at Michael Gallup as, a real elite receiver threat or super receiver threat. So I think the addition of CeeDee Lamb coming in there, who's going to be someone who's an extremely talented receiver, possibly one of the best out of the draft class, I see that they're going to take that investment that they put into him when they could have shored up a lot of their defense with young talent, rookie contracts, that Michael Gallup's going to be the one that's going to have those targets taken away from him. CeeDee Lamb and Randall Cobb don't play into the same receiver scheme at all.
No, I mean, they will. CeeDee Lamb will take over that slot spot. And, the Dallas Cowboys had the second most vacated targets. They had 100 from last year. They have 190 vacated targets between Randall Cobb and Jason Witten. So I really think just because CeeDee Lamb was drafted doesn't necessarily mean that, he's going to be eating into Michael Gallup's targets. I think they'll both, and Amari they'll all split the vacated targets more than anything.
You don't think that being that a large chunk of those vacated targets are coming from Jason Witten not being there, you don't think they're going to find that tight end getting a share of those targets?
Oh, I definitely do. But and I mean Blake Jarwin, I think there were Jason Witten had, I think it was 83 targets last year, off the top of my head. So I mean, just about half, just under half of those. I'm really bad at math, so I think that's half or something. But I think that Blake Jarwin will get a few more, but I think he had about 40 last year, so I think I have him at the same range as target wise as projected as Jason Witten last year. So I mean, he's only adding 40 more targets. I think there's plenty to go around, and I don't think that CeeDee's really going to hinder Michael Gallup because of those vacated targets. Now, if Jason Witten was still on the team and they had, I mean, the Cowboys are, they have one of the least deep tight end groups in all of the league. Mm-hmm. So I don't see, if like I said, if Jason Witten was still on the team, I think that it would, that at that point, he may eat into some of his targets. But being that there were so many vacated targets, and I think they're going to throw the football, not as much, but close to, as much as they did last year. So I don't think that they will. He'll really eat into any of. If anything, I think Michael Gallup will actually get a couple more.
Interesting. Okay.
So.
All right. I actually would I think I'm going to take Chris Godwin here. I actually really like Chris Godwin. I think he's going to break out a little bit further than he did the past two seasons and push himself ahead of Mike Evans as Tampa Bay's number one receiver, clear-cut number one receiver, and with Mike Evans falling down a little bit. And I think with the addition of Tom Brady being there, that you have a more accurate quarterback who's able to get the ball downfield, someone who can motivate the younger guys, and someone that's going to take over a team in game-time situations. And I think someone who's played with Randy Moss has a great idea of how to take a receiver who's extremely talented, can get downfield, make himself open, has a big enough body, but still quick. I'm going to take Chris Godwin. I'd be happy with him. I would take him over Kenny Golladay, and obviously I would take him over Mike Evans right now. If I'm not feeling Michael Gallup at his spot, CeeDee Lamb's only a few spots down, but Deontay Johnson's right down there. And like we were just saying, I think it's pretty easy for Deontay to break into that wide receiver 20 mark. So I think there's actually other values at that spot. Even Jarvis Landry going one before Michael Gallup, I think has a better opportunity than Michael Gallup does going into this season. So I'm going to actually go with Chris Godwin here, and I'm not going to be a cheapskate. I'm actually going to pay them big bucks and hope it pays off at the end of the season.
There you go. And one other thing is, last year Jameis Winston was airing the ball out, left and right. He's throwing to his team. He was throwing to the other team. He was throwing to anybody he could. And I don't think that Tampa's going to do that this year. I mean, Tom Brady and Jameis Winston had the same. I think Tom Brady had 60.8% completion percentage, and Jameis was 60.7. So I mean, similar accuracy per se last year. But I don't see them airing the ball out the same way they did with Tom Brady and how old he is now. And
no, I mean I don't either. But Chris Godwin finished at the second spot last year,
right,
with 14 games.
Right. Exactly. They were throwing the ball like crazy.
14 games. So you give him a 16-game season. He's, not really hard for him to repeat that. I mean, 30 touchdowns in a season or 36 touchdowns in a season is not unspoken. 5,000 yards in a season isn't unspoken. Tom Brady's actually breached that, and he's also breached 36 touchdowns. With the less explosive offense, Randy Moss is there though. So we'll see what he's able to do, and we'll see if Tampa Bay's offense schemes towards Tom Brady or if Tom Brady schemes towards Tampa Bay. And I think if Tom Brady comes into the same offense as Jameis Winston last year, I think it's deadly. I think Tom Brady's skill, arm strength, accuracy, I think it's going to turn him into how Breeze is, where he's a gunslinger.
I don't. I think they're going to be. I mean, I think they're going to be a very explosive offense. But I mean, we saw it last year, and I know, Tom Brady hasn't had as many weapons as he does, now, and I think obviously that's a huge upgrade. But at the same time, he's going to have to get the ball out of his hands very quickly, and with the offensive line compared to the one he had, and he's great at that, or he was great at that. So, and I just don't know if that's going to play to Chris Godwin's skill set.
All right, we'll see.
So, anyways, that was it. That was Cheapskates. Like I said, we're going to get that cool 80s funk music drop to play whenever we do this. So I think that'll be pretty cool. If you're a producer, hit us up at the Fantasy Tap on Instagram and make that beat for us.
There you go.
So now let's get to rookie wide receivers. I'm pretty excited about this one, mainly because I've got a couple of these receivers on some of my dynasty teams, and I am super high on them. I think they all have great opportunity, or at least most of them do, that we're going to talk about. So, John, you want to get into your first receiver?
Yeah. So the first person I came across when I was looking at the rookies was, and someone I think that's going to step into a huge role and doesn't really have too hard of a competition, is going to be Michael Pittman Jr. He was drafted in the second round by the Indianapolis Colts, and he actually finished his college career with 101 catches, 1,275 yards, and 11 touchdowns, and that was with the USC Trojans. They have a pretty solid strength of schedule throughout the season. It's not an SEC defense every week that they're playing against, or even half their season, but the Pac-12 does have a pretty solid defense. They do put up a lot of points. But now he's coming into Indianapolis. They have a new quarterback, someone who hasn't thrown for less than 500 attempts in the past 10 years, and he's only thrown for under 4,000 yards once, and that was in 2012. And he was on a 14-game season that year. So obviously the number one receiver in Indianapolis is going to be T.Y. Hilton, and that's not changing even with Phillip Rivers coming there. But as far as their number two receivers go, you've got Zach Pascal and Paris Campbell in contention with this second-round beast. So I don't see them, Zach Pascal last year finished as the wide receiver 48, and that was only because T.Y. Hilton missed 5 games, and he was the hopeful wide receiver 1 for the team. And in those games, you had 3 losses, 2 wins, and barely 100 receiving yards per game. And then the other person in contention is going to be Paris Campbell. he's someone who barely even had any relevance last year. He finished wide receiver 138 and only played a handful of games due to some injury.
Yeah.
But I think that Michael Pittman's skill set's, a big monster. Get in the middle of the field. I'm open because he's elite route running. He's very, very, very agile. He's not super speedy. He's not going to have that breakaway, get off the line, and burn my corner speed. But he is a really good catching receiver. If the ball's within his catch radius, he's bringing it in. And it's not going to be hard to get him on the field in a starting role in that offense with Phillip Rivers as your quarterback. So he's going to have the volume to be out there. So I think Michael Pittman's in a PPR league. He's getting drafted right now at wide receiver 57, ADP 149, and in standard wide receiver 67, ADP 164. So this is someone you're picking up last round of your draft. You're either taking him or you're picking him up on the waivers later. So this is someone you're going to be looking out for to have a big breakout year as a rookie and get his name out there for yourself and put up some points.
Yeah, and I don't think that Paris Campbell is. I like Paris Campbell. I do. I think they're different receivers, so I don't think they're going to impact each other too much. I think T.Y. Hilton's going to be the biggest competition for Michael Pittman, just because he's established. I think that Pittman does have some opportunity, but I mean it really comes down to training camp, and I know there wasn't there obviously isn't much this year, but I know Paris Campbell didn't play too much last year, but he has been in the offense. For a year and has been learning it. So, I mean, personally, I'm not looking at Pittman, for my last pick. I mean, there's a couple other people I'm looking at around that same ADP, John Brown being one of them, just because he's been in the league. He was solid last year. But
he's going to be in a worse position than Pittman going in with Diggs, who's going to be stealing his deep route receiver from him.
You got more than one receiver on the field.
Exactly. So why is Pittman going to be taking a hit?
Well, because there's like you said, there's Zach Pascal there as well, and there's also Paris Campbell plus T.Y. Hilton.
So T.Y. Hilton,
Paris
Michael
Campbell.
Pittman. He's a better receiver than Paris Campbell and Zach Pascal.
I mean, he may be, but the position he's being put in this year, right now, coming out of COVID,
a second wideout,
having a very small training camp, I just don't see him having much value. And I'd rather grab that.
The Colts posted a nice little video of him running routes in training camp with a face mask today.
I mean, they can post that.
They didn't post Zach Pascal, and they didn't post Paris Campbell.
He's a flashy new toy, and he will be I'm not saying he's not going to be a great receiver. I'm saying this year in a redraft league, I personally wouldn't grab him. And I don't think he's going to be a bad receiver whatsoever. But I think being put in the position he is this year, with so many other receivers, who did, especially, like you said, Pascal, who did show some flashes last year. I think that he will be ahead of him, and it may not be the whole year, but I just don't think, I'm that late round, that last pick, I'm going to grab somebody who I think is going to really be on the up and up and could finish high end wide receiver 3, something like that. So, and I just don't see that in his cards personally.
Okay. Yeah, no.
So, anyways, I will get to my first rookie, and that is Jalen Reagor. He doesn't have many people in front of him. I don't know how they have I think he's the only wide receiver on the team by now.
Oh, you got Alshon.
Who's hurt, pup list. So, yeah, no. So, he's got, I think out of all the rookies drafted this year, I think he has the most opportunity to be, the wide receiver 1 for their team, just because of the opportunity or where he's been placed. Anybody who would have gone to Philadelphia, who everybody knew needed a wide receiver, they were put into a position to compete and potentially be the number 1 wide receiver for that team. Especially, Marquise Goodwin just opted out. Alshon Jeffrey's hurt. They do have, Ertz and Goddard there who will definitely take targets away. And after looking at, I watched some tape of Jalen Reagor, and I didn't see anything special on it. Good receiver. Not blazing fast, typically, or in anything. I think he ran a 4.47. And the thing that worries me the most is his senior year. He only played 12 games, which is, in college it's a full season, but he played 12 games, and he actually almost every stat dropped. His catch rate went down from a 57 to 46%. He dropped in receiving yards from 1,061 the previous year to 611 yards. And that just bothers me. But anyways, I think that he was definitely put into a great position, and he can make an immediate impact on that team. But I'm staying away from him this year. I mean, he's being drafted actually right behind Michael Pittman, from what I saw.
He's actually being drafted way ahead of Michael Pittman.
In
standard and PPR, he's actually going at ADP 126 in PPR and 164 in standard. So,
yeah, right. I'm sorry, right in front of Sterling Shepard. So, he's a great late round guy. I'd be staying away from him. Anthony Miller goes at the 132, and I think he's gonna, especially in a PPR league, I think he's gonna get more targets and receptions than Reagor. But overall, I think he has, the best opportunity.
Yeah.
So
personally, I'm staying away from him. Like you said, I've watched some tape on him. Nothing special about the guy, and I just see the Eagles continuing to look for a receiver this year, and not him not being the guy for them. He didn't do anything special in college. He, like Mike was saying, his senior year was one of the worst seasons he had, and was actually a decline when his sophomore season, I believe he said, was his best.
Yeah, his sophomore was, yeah.
So, and that's not something you'll see with a lot of receivers coming out of college that end up doing well, unless they had some sort of large injury that happened in the end of their junior year or senior year. So I'm staying the heck away from all Eagles receivers this year until hopefully someone on the waivers turns out to be their number one.
D-Jax, I think, could be or will be, but
hopefully.
But we'll see. So,
yes. So my next rookie receiver is actually going to be Denzel Mims for the New York Jets. I think as Mike was going over Jalen Reagor with you guys, I see the same situation coming to him for Denzel Mims. While Jamison Crowder has been someone who's been their wide receiver one-ish. Yeah, exactly. He's been the guy that's there. He's been the one that's consistently there. He's had minimal injuries the last couple of years. He's just been consistently there for Sam Darnold, and not someone that's able to do a lot with what he's been given. He only had 78 receptions last year on over about 100 targets. So he's not doing much with what he gets.
Right.
So with the addition of Denzel Mims, who, he was drafted in the second round again. He finished this year with 66 catches for 1,020 yards with 12 touchdowns. So he's someone who's proven that on less than 100 targets, it was 93 targets. He catches the ball, grabs the ball, and finishes with 15.5% or 15.5 yards per reception average. So he's someone that can get downfield. He's a big body who's shown incredible body control. If you watch tape of him, he has a huge highlight tape of it's all of him catching balls near the sideline and him just adjusting his body, making sure he gets feet in or adjusting his hips so the defender will miss him. And he's someone that I think someone who's like Sam Darnold, who's not an elite quarterback, can get a ball towards a receiver and just needs a receiver to make a play on it. I think it's a really good match for them. He's big. He's able to go up for the ball and come down with it. He's going to be a good red zone target. And he might not be the reception leader for the Jets, but I think you're going to find he's the yardage leader and even the touchdown leader for receptions at the end of the year for them.
Yeah. I like it. I'm the only Jets player personally I'm going near as Le'Veon this year. But they scare me. Adam Gase scares me. And so, I mean, personally, I'll be staying away from him. But his ADP, I mean, 191. He'll if he has a breakout week 1, week 2, week 3, something like that, that's when people are going to be flocking to the waivers and picking him up. So
definitely a good deep round sleeper towards waiver sleeper for you guys.
Yep. So I'll jump into my next one. Favorite wide receiver actually in this entire draft, Justin Jefferson from LSU. I mean, yeah, he's picked 22nd overall by the Vikings, and I think his spot, couldn't have been better. They're not a pass first team, but Kirk Cousins extremely accurate. They just lost Stephon Diggs, and I think that's going to move. Actually, their offensive coordinator was saying that Jefferson's going to be playing in the slot quite a bit. He said, "quote unquote." So I think that's going to benefit Jefferson because if you see, typically Adam Thielen was their slot receiver, and Thielen was Cousins' go-to guy. That's why Stephon left, was because he was kind of upset he wasn't getting the targets. Yeah. So I do think that Justin Jefferson's going to have a immediate impact between him and Thielen. Kyle Rudolph's getting older. We saw it last year. He's starting to. The only reason why he was really fantasy relevant was because he caught 6 touchdowns. And I think that Irv Smith will, kind of take the place there. But I just think the fact that going to a quarterback who's so accurate, who relies on that, that slot play or that slot receiver and making those, shorter throws, I think that's just going to benefit Justin Jefferson. And, I was watching his tape, and he's not just a slot player. I mean, he can be the outside guy. But I think with Thielen there, he'll play the outside mostly. Justin will be the inside. I actually have Justin Jefferson projected already, and I have him projected quite a bit. That's how high I am on him. But 86 targets, 56 receptions for 744 yards, which is a pretty decent, rookie year with 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, I think where he's going, I do like him. I actually grabbed him in a couple dynasty leagues, and I am very happy and excited to see what he does and how he performs. But I think he's in a great position to do so.
Yeah, he walks into one of the easiest wide receiver 2 roles of any rookie this season, and so just replace someone who is already fantasy relevant in Stephon Diggs, and hopefully the Vikings learn from their mistakes and realize they need to feed the second guy too. Will help Justin Jefferson produce this season, so I would pick him up late as well. Maybe not 152 in a standard or 124 in a PPR, but it would really depend on what my team looks like. If I have a solid team at that point, I might trade for him, or I might pick him up there. I like him.
You're in a dynasty league.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, if your rookie league or rookie draft hasn't gone yet, pick him up, especially if you're at the back end of the first.
Do we want to do the next one?
Yeah, real quick.
All right.
Run through them.
Yeah, I'll run through it really quick. So my last guy is someone who was taken to the top of the second round, and that's T. Higgins to the Bengals. You've got someone who's 6'4", 215 pounds, and an absolute monster. He's finished his last season with 59 catches for 1,167 yards and 13 touchdowns. So that means he was averaging at least a touchdown a game. So obviously he's definitely not the wide receiver 1, and more than likely not even the wide receiver 2. I don't like him so much for this year, but he's someone who, as soon as A.J. Green goes down, or even if Tyler Boyd goes down, he jumps from possibly irrelevant to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 target very, very easily. There's not a lot of tight end depth. Joe Mixon only takes up so many receptions, and you've got a new quarterback in there. So if he can get into the offense, he's set. If not, you got to stay away from him, at least in a redraft league, because he's just not going to be doing anything. Unless he balls out on a few plays that he gets. So don't pick him up. Stay away from him for this year. Dynasty leagues, pick him up and hold him. If you pick him up, put him in that taxi squad, forget about him until you saw that he just had a breakout game.
I picked him up. I actually just traded for him. Super excited about that. So,
Yeah.
I'll jump into my last one real quick, and that is Henry Ruggs. I mean, he's a freak. 4.27, which is just a tad slower than what I run. So I mean, he's got to be an athlete. Anyway, he's not a big target. He's only 5'11", but going into the draft, I mean, everyone knew that Jerry Jeudy was the clear and wide receiver one on Alabama, and then as it got closer to draft time, everybody started second guessing it. They were like, well, maybe Ruggs is the guy. Maybe Ruggs was the one who created those opportunities. And actually, his freshman year, he led Alabama with the most receiving touchdowns at 6. So, and he ended up going before Jerry Jeudy this year, who is also a monster. But anyways, he goes to a great spot over in Las Vegas. Tyrell Williams is the only other receiver there that could compete for that wide receiver one on that team. I do like Hunter Renfrow. He showed, flashes last year. But I think that Ruggs was put in a great spot, in Las Vegas. And at his ADP, I mean, he's going wide receiver 44 off the board, ADP 114 in PPR. And around him's going Sammy Watkins, Robbie Anderson, Golden Tate, and Preston Williams. I kind of like Ruggs. I do like. I wouldn't mind having Ruggs on my team.
Who's going to be eating up in all of his targets though? Jason Witten.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, Darren Waller definitely get his share, but he was there last year, and Tyrell Williams. I mean,
he was relevant. I used him for a couple games last season, and I was plagued with injuries in one of my leagues, and he was someone that I picked up, and he actually helped me win a couple games, because he was just barely usable, and so hopefully they can get their stuff together. Yeah. I would stay away from Ruggs. He's a little too early for me. He's one of the earlier rookie wide receivers off the board, and even though Jefferson's role is a little more obvious to everyone, you kind of know what we're going to be expecting from him. It's that the second wide receiver for the Vikings offense. You don't know what you're expecting from Ruggs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just where I'm stuck. I'm not going to be grabbing him.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on how your team's playing out, but I do like him also for big play upside too this year. So
yeah, best ball, he'd be great.
Yeah, great best ball pick. So that is it for our wide receiver rookies. Obviously, there's plenty others that we did not mention, but those were some that stuck out to us that we kind of wanted to talk to you guys about. But let's get real quick into the news going on lately.
Our man is cleared.
Tua, baby, the chosen one.
The chosen one. Once Harvard man drops out and lets the Fitzmagic die off and lets Tua jump into that offense. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be one of the best second-string quarterbacks that this Tua could have had. The guy that's going to be holding the clipboard for him and helping him out at the end of the season, you really couldn't ask for much better. He's an extreme journeyman who's been on halfway around the league almost.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy for him.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't think Tua has much redraft value this year. Especially with, the virus and everything like that.
The virus.
COVID. I don't think that he's going to be playing many games. Originally, I thought he'd be playing about half. I mean, maybe 3 this year is kind of what I'm thinking personally. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think he's probably going to be playing at the minimal half, if not coming in like a third way, like 3 or 4 games into the season. And even just doing a timeshare back at that point. They don't have to play him every down. We're not competing for...
Yeah, but that's not B-Flow. That's not Brian Flores.
We'll see.
Flores wouldn't do that. No. He's there to win. But let's get on to another rookie quarterback real quick. Anthony Lynn said Tyrod is probably the starter. That means Justin Herbert holding the clipboard, which not much fantasy impact. Tyrod could be a late-round quarterback. He definitely showed some fantasy value last time. For a couple weeks in Cleveland. And then in Buffalo before
Buffalo,
that.
he was awesome for a few years until he finally started slowing down. But a 2 QB league, you might want to roster him.
Yep.
For that third spot, just in case someone goes down. You don't want to be searching through backup quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. And then Lamar said he's hoping the Ravens sign AB. If you're in a dynasty league and AB is sitting there on the wire and you have an extra pick, or an extra spot, why not pick him up? Throw him on there.
If the spot's empty, it's not going to hurt you. Does it affect Hollywood if they pick him up?
Yeah, it will. Yeah, but it's going to be a while before he comes back because I think he's the
NFL hasn't even said whether or not he's cleared to be accepted by a team, because I know the Seahawks a few weeks ago came out saying that we've tried talking to him. We're waiting on the NFL. So I doubt the Seahawks are going to do anything now that they just are getting ready to spend all this money on Jamal Adams at the end of this season. So they're probably not looking at AB anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's probably at least a dozen other teams that would be halfway tempted to sign him.
Yep.
And I would go full minimum guaranteed up front and then full incentive contract.
There you go. And he'll probably come back for that, especially on that team, play with his nephew. So.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. And
then, of course, as everybody's been seeing, opt-outs everywhere. But the biggest one was, especially fantasy impact, was Damian Williams. That was huge for, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. John, would you draft him in the first round?
I might. But if you guys really want to know that, you guys are going to have to tune in for tomorrow's episode.
Yep.
We're going to be going all over some rookie running backs and where we think they should go.
Yep.
So as fresh as this Damian Williams news is, and I know we want to sink our teeth into it because
I got like an hour just on that.
Yeah, me and him can go back and forth forever. Just make sure you guys tune in. We'll give you guys a lot of perspective on that. And let's get into the beer of the day.
Ooh. Oh, the soundboard's not on. We got to turn that on.
That usually helps.
Ooh.
Get into the beer of the day.
There it is. All right, so we are drinking the Stump Knocker by Swamp Head Brewery. They're out of Gainesville. It's an American Pale Ale. I have enjoyed it so far. And for those of you who don't really know the difference between, because I didn't, to be honest.
Michael, what is an American Pale Ale?
Well, that's a great question, but I don't know exactly what it is, but I know the difference between an IPA and an APA is. The APA is supposed to be a little more soft and palatable and not as bitter, whereas the IPA is the opposite. And
it is meant to be more bitter and less palatable?
Well, probably a little more, palatable, I guess. I don't know.
A little more bitter. All
not
right.
so. It's supposed to be bitter, more bitter. So, and a little more hoppy flavor. But, to be honest, this one's kind of hoppy.
Yeah, for the beers that we've done so far, I think this is one of the higher end IBUs. It coming in at 42.
Yep.
It's definitely leaving a little hoppy flavor. We've had a lot of dry beers so far that kind of clear up right away. I keep having this nice little hoppy flavor at the back of my tongue as we're sitting here talking. But again, this is Stump Knocker by Swamp Head Brewery. It's an American Pale Ale. It's sitting at 5.6%. So it's a little heavier than your average standard American lagers that you're going to be finding. And then ABU is sitting at 42, like I said a few minutes ago. It's brewed with the Columbus, Centennial, and Amarillo hops.
Ooh, Amarillo popped up again.
Yeah, they were actually in our last brew. And, you can kind of pick up that orangey citrusy a little bit from them.
Yeah, I taste it, yeah. Especially like that middle, like you take the sip, let it sit for a second, boom, citrus, boom,
that mid taste. But the mouthfeel itself, it's pretty heavily carbonated as far as beer goes. I don't want to say it's aggressive on the mouth, but you definitely understand that you're drinking something, and you can feel it all over your tongue. So I like it. If someone who's didn't really get into IPAs for a while, this would have been a good stepping stone from your, if you're going from your Bud Light and Coors Light, and you're like, I want to start getting into craft beer and start drinking IPAs with my friends. This would be a good stepping stone in from it.
I think it's honestly, I think it's a little more aggressive personally.
Really?
Especially with the IBU count, I mean, you really tell you're drinking a beer. I mean, it's really got that, that punch to it. The first IPA that we had on the show, honestly, I feel like that was a little less hoppy, and which, according to the definition and all, it's not supposed to be. But I think this is a little bit more than that one, at least. But I like it. I mean, I do like it. I could see sitting out there, and it's kind of cool because it has a fish on the can. And I was asking John. He's not a fisherman, and I'm not a fisherman. But I think it's a perch. So, but anyways, I could sit out there on a dock or on a boat or something like that, and have a couple of these while I'm fishing, which would be great little vibe. So
I like this. I like this if you're going out with some friends and you see it on the menu. And again, as you're saying, it's definitely way hoppier than the last IPA we had on, but it's not as bitter. It's not giving you that bitter taste, at least for me, that bitter aftertaste on my tongue. That when I first started getting into beers, I hated it. It was the reason I stopped. I would find one I could drink it there and then just keep staying with that one. So this one's kind of working your way up into getting that hoppy flavor and not worrying about that bitterness sitting on your tongue for a few minutes later. But really a great beer. And if you guys have any other beers that you might want to send our way, that you guys might want to say, hey, check this one out. Hey, I like this brewery over here. Send it our way.
Let us know.
Shoot us an email to thefantasytap@gmail.com. You can also send it to our Instagram and Twitter at thefantasytap. And then if you guys have any questions, fantasy advice, rookie deals, you guys are getting ready to start doing your drafts. You want to know where you're picking from. Shoot us any questions you have. Stay tuned on our Instagram stories for any polls we have. And then check us out on Friday.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be here tomorrow, Friday. Also, we really appreciate the support. If y'all could subscribe, share with one friend, that'd be amazing for us. If you could just tell one person about this, let them get that knowledge.
We all have one friend that loves fantasy. So if you guys just want to send it out to them, and then hopefully they like it, tell them to send it to someone else. Let's get the word out, and let's create a little community here.
Let's win our championships, baby. Love you guys. Thanks so much.